being held in the Don B. Griffin Room, Harwich Town Hall, 732 Main Street, Harwich, at 6 PM, Thursday, August 8th, 2024. And this is the call to order. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? Hearing none, moving on. Welcome any guest. Let's go to the regular CPC meeting. Approval of the minutes, June 13th, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. I
Okay.
wasn't here.
I
Right.
abstain as well.
Under new business, vote for the committee reorganization.
I move to open nominations.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you've got the floor.
I move to nominate David Nixon as chair of the CPC for the next year.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Does that have to be a roll call?
No.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
No discussion?
Oh, sorry. Discussion. You're absolutely correct.
Are you interested in the position?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
I move to close nominations for chair.
for chair, okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, vice chair.
I move to nominate Kathy Green as the vice chair of CPC for the next coming year.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Do we really need a vice chair?
Yes.
That's the question of the night. Do we really need one?
Discussion. Kathy, are you still interested?
Sure.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We can move on. New business. Committee reorganization, we just did. CPC finances. Okay, I'm going to open this discussion. I have made a request Monday night to the Board of Selectmen that the CPC accounts be trued up. They're aware of our request, our multiple requests to have the information certified or however they do their final audit. So, we don't have a finance director presently. I'm sure that's going to be resolved soon. But again, I think it's necessary that those accounts be gone through. So I'll open it up to the board. That's my personal opinion. Open to the board. Anybody want to speak to that, address that particular issue? Go ahead, Kathy.
No, I was just going to say that I think since we don't have a finance director right now, I think that the truing up or the, not auditing, but whatever, modest term of that, is going to take place with town accounts as well as our accounts. So our account may be pushed off for a while. And to that effect, if we don't have trued up numbers by the fall, I would respectfully say that we should conservatively go about our deliberations in the same way that we did before, with knowing what our tax levy is, knowing what our state contribution is, and really that's it. And this may be a year where we don't fund some things because we're unsure of the funding, and really are conservative until we get those trued up numbers.
Thank you, Kathy. Anybody else? Mary?
So I don't disagree with Kathy at all. I do think, though, that I would hope that they would make our accounts a priority, just because the town relies on that $3 million every year to fund quite a number of projects. So hopefully they can be given priority, and I just think we've gone about this for multiple years now, and it's time to pay us a little bit of attention there. I understand that, you know, a new person will need to do the same thing as in past years and get accustomed to it, but it would just be nice if somebody could go back to kind of what we thought were the last best numbers and just run them forward with our encumbrances even, and and the, you know, receivables, just to be able to get a better sense as to whether we're in the right ballpark. I think you and I, Kathy, have spent a lot of time on those numbers, and I think we're pretty spot on, at least conservatively, that we were spending certainly under what we had. But the amount of money that we've rescinded, plus the receipts that we've had for just under the tax levy, really should be added up, just to give us a little more confidence there.
Just to add to the discussion, there's more, I would like to see what the interest is of the monies that are already captured in the accounts. And there's another piece of the puzzle, and that's part of the housing, the rental housing money.
You're talking about the short-term rental tax.
Short-term
That doesn't have
rental.
anything to do with us, though.
That's
No.
not part of I
No.
thought we had
No, a part of it is going to affordable housing,
that's,
but not us.
okay, I stand corrected. Okay.
The rest wastewater management, I believe, so.
I think it's a portion, I think it's some general fund, I think it's some
Mm.
sewer and some affordable housing.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me on that. Anything else from anybody else? Any thoughts? Okay, hearing none, moving on. Can we vote for the Community Preservation Coalition? The annual bill is $4,350. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Was that Bob?
Yes.
Thank you.
So, only discussion is for the record, for those watching, that these are the dues that we pay annually to the Community Preservation Coalition, which is a lobbying organization for all CPCs statewide, and at the state legislature and through the governor's office. So these dues are kind of the necessary evil.
Lobbying and technical assistance.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a motion? A motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor? Thank you for that, folks. Okay, next thing is the discussion of the grant agreement policy and procedure. There's something I'd like to read to the board before we get started on this discussion. I'm not going to disclose where this came from. It's just a general informational for the board. Hello, David. I was wondering if the CPC has a document outlining the process of how funds are released once an applicant has been approved. I'm especially looking for something that will show what the steps are for the applicant and how they may need to meet the release of the fundings, if the funds are to be distributed in stages. I find that the second part of that interesting.
Why? The stages for it?
Whether or not the funds are going to be distributed within stages, in
Well,
stages.
Can I just speak to that?
Go ahead, you've got the floor.
I only know that, for example, when the Affordable Housing Trust appropriated money to the firehouse, which is not our money, obviously, but it was theirs. They appropriated in stages, like with timeframes on it, or conditions of when certain things were
Milestones.
completed, yeah. So that's probably where that thought process came from. We don't have that right now. We've never discussed that. With us, we release it all. If, you know, it's a reimbursement thing though, isn't it, Mary? Basically, no?
I don't think so.
We just don't give somebody the money though, without having some,
So I don't know for certain, but
Okay.
I was always of the understanding that
was just,
they brought their bills in and then
Yeah.
well, that's what I mean,
bills
bills,
were, right, the bills were
equal-
approved, right.
Right, right.
You know, but, I also think, again, you know, for outside agencies, and that includes the trust, there should be a grant agreement in place first. I will again say, though, I don't think an agreement is necessary for a town employee. So, you know, a conservation officer, natural resources officer comes forward, there's no point in a grant agreement because they're an entity appointed by the Board of Selectmen. So, you know,
Right.
those circumstances, I think that money stays in our account and David approves the bills as they come in.
Right.
Thank you, Mary. Kathy?
Yeah, I think there's been some slowdown in the process this year, and,
That's putting it mildly.
okay, well, I'm being nice, there's been a slowdown in the process, and I think some of it has to do with a lack of procedure, maybe on our part. So I think moving forward, when, I think that if we wanted to put together something that reflected our concern about this, obviously, any non-town entity that is receiving funding is required to sign a grant agreement. I think that once town meeting has approved the funding, a grant agreement needs to be signed by July 1st by the applicant as well as whoever in town needs to sign it. And then monies will be released, and not until. And we've been very sort of, we play catch-up. It's like somebody wants the money and they're like, well, where's the grant agreement? Oh, okay, well, we got to find the grant agreement. So I think we need to have a policy in place that says, this is your time frame to do this. And put the onus on someone, you know, to get that done, and then the release of funds, and not until.
Mary?
So just to follow up to that too, I think when we're looking at applications, that perhaps we should consider whether it is an application that we think should go out all in one lump sum, or if it's something that we think should be in stages. So, for
That
example,
too.
the trust, I think the way because of the trust and what it is, I think they have the fiduciary duty to spend that money accordingly. So theirs, I think, stays in one lump sum.
Right.
But for even some of the other entities, perhaps we want to start thinking about doing a milestone or doing them in stages, because once the money's gone, we say we can rescind it, you're not going to get it back.
But if
From a
they're
practical
not, but if
standpoint.
they're not getting any money unless they have a bill to present, then. what you-
Different story, right?
Yeah.
If that's how it's working, then great. But if it's, you know, XYZ entity and they're just looking to get their $50,000 and then, you know, we're getting updates later as to how they spent it, maybe we shouldn't, you know? So just food for thought.
Yeah,
There's one thing I want you all to consider, please. Last year, there was a real brouhaha over the trust document, signing a grant agreement, and it was stated in this meeting room that the trust didn't have to sign a grant agreement. And KP Law kind of moved that along. So, I'd rather take the trust agreement, grant agreement off the table, so we don't have to fight that battle again.
but it's not like, it's not best practices though.
I argued that in front of the Board of Selectmen at a selectmen meeting.
So I need a point of clarification on that, because My understanding was that they were arguing that they didn't, that we couldn't rescind the money once we gave it to them. I
That was
didn't-
their whole,
And that's fine, but that doesn't mean that there shouldn't still be an agreement in place.
okay,
So
this is part of the
I
discussion.
guess that's where I'm coming from, because it is a separate legal entity from the town. So I think it should have its own.
Can I ask a question? And just to catch me up, who writes these grant agreements? Is this a blanket grant agreement? Is it?
Yes, it's a generic grant agreement that was established 6 years ago that KP Law put together.
Okay,
Now, I can't go any further than that.
okay.
Well, they're the town's attorney, and they represent the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen are the signing authority on behalf of the town, so that all makes perfect sense. I'm not sure all of our recollections are necessarily the same when it comes to the trust, so I would just,
Fair enough.
I agree with you, Mary, though. They had two arguments. One was the trust had an argument amongst themselves that some people did not like the wording of the grant agreement and wanted more time to dissect the whole thing.
They wanted to
given-
be a participant.
Yeah, so that was one issue, and the second issue was the rescission thing. We agreed to remove the rescission statement, and they agreed, I believe, in the meeting with us that they would be happy to sign it without that, this past
okay,
funding cycle.
that
Now,
sounds more
that's
right.
not to say that they will not have issues with
Yep.
it moving forward.
John?
Clarification, does that mean they did sign a grant
I
agreement?
don't know. I don't know.
I do. The answer's no.
And is there an explanation?
None.
And was the money dispersed to them?
I don't know the answer to that. I can't find that answer.
Okay.
Can't find that answer.
Well, they can find that answer when somebody delves into the accounts.
Well, yeah.
Which is why we
Well,
revisit
we
item-
have a new
Item number
financial-
2 on the agenda, so.
I will tell you, past fundings have been allocated to their account. They were sort of, kind of just sitting in the munis thing for a while. They have moved in. I don't know if this last one has moved in.
So,
I don't know either. On
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
count.
Yeah, no, it'd gone.
Okay,
more questions.
go ahead.
So, is their account just a bookkeeping entity? That is, the actual cash or whatever the security is or cash is in a town account mixed in with a bunch of other money, and there's a bookkeeping entry that says this is the trust?
Yes.
That's the way it works?
Well, they have, the trust has their fund, and within their fund, they have monies that have been from Community Preservation Act funds, they have cell phone tower funds, and they will have short-term rental tax funds. So far, that's their only sources of funding.
But my question
I understand.
do they have a separate bank account that this money goes into? Or
don't
is
think
it
so.
just
So they could have a
bookkeeping
separate-
entry?
What I will tell you is this, what I was told yesterday. There are 6 particular bank accounts that handle CPC funding.
That's a different,
That's absurd.
No, it's not, because the CPC money tends to be held in trust funds. So it's gaining interest, it's segregated. So that was my understanding, was that the CPC trust funds, that's where our money is held. Still managed by the town, but separate from a main bank account.
That's not what I was told yesterday, Mary. I don't know if that's incorrect or not.
And I don't either. I know when I had asked her.
How you do, right.
When I had asked a particular individual who was temporarily assisting, the comment was there was, X number of dollars in the CPC trust funds, so, in the trust accounts. So, I could be wrong as well. But I don't know whether the housing trust, Affordable Housing Trust,
As they were.
has a separate bank account with a separate EIN number on it, or if it is also a town account, but perhaps a segregated town account. I don't know the answer to the question.
Okay,
Go ahead, John, you
I
got the
just
floor.
asked one more question, just backing up several steps. You said things have been slow this year. Does that mean that, like, when an outside entity presents a bill, say, from a contractor who needs to get paid, it takes too long to get paid, like?
Or they haven't been
beyond
able, they have
30
not been
days?
able to access the funds.
They have not.
The town has not been able to access the funds?
No, the outside, the people requesting have not been able to access.
So essentially, you're saying we haven't paid the bills?
We haven't paid the bill. And we have no
That's not right
control
either.
over that.
We as a committee don't have any control over it.
Presumably somebody does.
Finance director.
Now, remember, paying a bill with the town takes 2 weeks. So, it's not like it happens overnight, but
Yeah.
Well,
still, it shouldn't be,
business gets 30 days.
right.
So beyond 30 days, then you begin to think something's wrong.
Yes.
Okay.
So, what's the pleasure of the board? Do we develop a new policy or a policy of some type, a written policy that we can move forward with when it comes to the grant agreements? I'm open for suggestions.
I think we have to at this point.
Seems reasonable to me.
I'm sorry, couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, I'm mumbling. Seems reasonable. I don't see why we wouldn't. It's just trying to clarify things so everybody understands what the process is. Otherwise, there's just confusion.
Understood. So, is there a motion? Go ahead.
No, I was
Still in
was going to
discussion.
also say that, plus we need to identify specifically who needs to sign a grant agreement and who doesn't. Because as much as what we've had in our mind is correct, I mean, if you go back years before the Affordable Housing Trust, it used to be groups like the Harwich Historical Society. They were outside of
Right.
the town and they signed a grant agreement. But there've been other organizations that are outside the town that have been getting funding for years, past, present, and will be in the future, and they just signed their first agreement ever. So it hasn't been, standard. So I think we need to, create the what, the who, the when, the why.
So, may I?
Go ahead.
There is language now in the information.
Yes, there
packet,
is.
But it doesn't cover all these points. It gives an example of a grant agreement. It says you may be required to sign a grant agreement, but it doesn't say funding won't be released until the grant agreement is signed, and please sign the grant agreement on or before July 1.
Right. We don't have that yet. That's going to be a new policy that we put in our policies and procedures handbook.
Can I make a suggestion? Could we have maybe an outline of what's in the informational packet? If we can kind of just start with an outline at the next meeting? Because I think if we have an outline with the basics, the who needs to sign it, when it needs to be signed, it will have a statement of work attached to it that will detail the project, the article number, the project, whatever.
Right.
And then the procedures for accessing the funds. I think if we start with that, we'll have a basis that we can kind of make sure that people see as they're going through their process this year and be able to fill in the blanks before we get to the approval stages in February.
Okay, so my next question is, are we as a board overreaching?
No.
Should the grant agreements come from the Board of Selectmen
They do.
or the CPC?
They do. The KP Law drafted them, so that's where they're coming from. We're just telling them when we're expecting them to get signed and that we expect there to be a statement of work included with each one,
Okay, All right,
and I use the statement of work loosely, it's gonna be, you know, Community Development Partnership has sought $7,500
you're right.
for their, you know, whatever, they need to sign the grant agreement, and then once signed, and they show us their, I don't know, they show us their schedule for the upcoming year, then we'll agree to release the funds. The schedule of classes for the upcoming year, something like that. I think that's what we're gonna need to do for each one.
Robert?
The one comment, we were talking about the grant agreement has to be signed by July 1st. I think that's a little strict. I think it's just, it has to be signed before you ever get disbursement.
Yeah, but that puts us in a place where we're hunting people down then to try to get these in place, because everybody comes in at different times of the year for their
Yeah.
money. For example, funding for the land acquisitions sometimes takes a year, sometimes it takes a year and a half before they apply for their money.
Right.
And then we're trying to find, we're trying to
The only
catch up.
thing is, so is the penalty, if they don't sign by July 1st, is they have now forfeited the award?
No, we didn't talk about that.
No, they-
No, but I mean, if
That's-
you're gonna set dates.
Yeah.
You have to have a penalty if you don't make it, or something. I mean, and certainly it's understandable if you're working on a grant agreement and there is some question about the wording or something. I mean, you can't force them, well, if you don't sign it, by July 1st, forget it. That there's gotta be some time afterwards
I
to,
used that tactic last year on the trust. And, yeah, I know. Anyway,
Food for thought.
Kelly?
Well, I think that, talking about off of what Bob said, if they need to sign before they can, get reimbursed for any bill, then I guess that settles that, cause if they submit a bill for reimbursement, then that's an easy response if you haven't signed the grant agreement yet. But I think it's still helpful to set a target, though, of July 1st. They have plenty of time following town meeting, but that it still said that they know that in order to receive funds, they have to have a filed grant agreement.
and follow,
Let me start with Mary.
okay.
My only comment was gonna be, year end, July 1st is a tough date for town employees, because we're dealing with year end and setting up for the next fiscal year. It might bump it a month, say August 1st instead of July 1st.
Right. And I'm just gonna quick say that
Go ahead.
the Board of Selectmen right now sign off on the board agreements. I don't think they want to see board agreements coming in, one in September, maybe one in January, one in whatever to sign, because they have to put them on the agenda, they have to whatever, and then that prolongs the process. So I think having a date, if you're an applicant and you put in for this funding, you should need the funding, okay? So I don't see there'd be a problem with signing a grant agreement, even if you don't access the funding, then it's on
No,
record and
no,
they have it,
That's the ideal world,
Yeah.
but I just see situations where that's not gonna happen.
of course.
And my question though is, who actually manages the grant agreements? Is it our responsibility as far as who signed what, keep a list, and who hasn't signed yet?
It used to be the finance director.
No, because, like you said, it could go, if it goes for a long time, well, what was the grant agreement? How was it written then, and stuff like that?
Just to give you an example, someone I talked to the other day just signed a grant agreement for something that was funded in 2023.
Yeah.
And they just signed the grant agreement and got the funding. So, I'm not sure that that's the best way either.
Honestly, I don't think we have the ability to put a time date on it, simply because it's a town meeting vote. No matter what, it's a town meeting vote. So, if they voted that money goes to them.
So why are we gonna have grant agreements?
No, I'm arguing the point that you want a specific date. What I'm saying to you is, there can't be a date, because that money has been assigned by town meeting to them. So it's not clear to me how you would put a date on that. pick it up at such and such a date, or you're not gonna get your money. Doesn't work, we don't have that kind of, John,
I keep thinking of this analogy of speed limit enforcement, and it may be a little off, but nonetheless, you know, just generically, I'm asking you, how fast do you drive down Route 6? And when was the last time you got a speeding ticket? So, you know, there's one thing, setting standards and guidelines. There's another thing, are we gonna enforce these things? And when was the last time anyone got a speeding ticket for going 60 miles an hour on Route 6? Or 65, or even 70 for that matter? But it's still 55, and it still needs to be 55. I think we need to say, you know, this is a guideline. Please have grant agreement signed by July 1st, or if we decide it's July 15th or August 1st, whatever. And we don't need to establish a penalty for not doing that. The penalty is if it never gets done, or if 18 months later, someone comes in with a bill and nobody knows where the grant agreement is, and people are gonna scramble around, and it's gonna get delayed further because people have to figure out where the grant agreement is. Has it been signed or not? That's the penalty. It's this confusion and extra hassle and the delay in payment that's the problem. But if we tell them, please get it in this time, whatever it is, then more people will do that than maybe if there's no rules, and we'll just still have to deal with the ones who don't.
Kelly.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was about to say, the same thing, that if we have a target date that we think is a good target submission date, that'll help the process along for all approved applicants, then the recommendation in there could be, please submit by this date. Anything past this date could result in a delay of process just due to internal processes.
Perfect wording.
That's exactly right.
Robert,
Getting back to the management of them, who sends out the grants,
the agreements
Agreements.
themselves, that comes from the finance department.
oh, it does? So they're responsible to send them out, it's not our
It's
responsibility?
not our responsibility.
And do they understand that's their responsibility?
Well, I can't comment.
Yeah, I mean, you know, because those should, as soon as, right after town meeting, they should be shipped out to the ones that require grant agreements and to give them to sign.
Right now, as it stands, there's a few groups that are waiting for those grant agreements to be signed.
To be sent to them, or to be signed
be
within the
signed.
group? Or to be signed in our side? Okay. I mean, is there any reason why the finance department does it? Why can't we do that as part of our committee responsibilities?
I think we're really overstepping there.
Really? Just to send out the grant agreement?
Yeah,
And then
it
who,
should come from the finance department.
okay, and then if there's
In
an
my
issue,
opinion.
if there's an issue with it, who negotiates it?
Board of Selectmen's
Board of Selectmen.
council.
It's,
Okay,
they're signing off on it. It's their
Okay.
money.
yeah.
They control, it's not their money, it's the town money, but they control it.
Right, no,
They're the end-all, be-all.
okay.
Kathy?
Yes, so we do not have a representative from Community Preservation Committee sign the grant agreement. Is that correct? It's just strictly Board of Selectmen and somebody from the Finance Department, or?
No, it's
Just-
strictly the Board of Selectmen, and they send it, it's supposed to come from us through finance to the Board of Selectmen for their signature, then it goes back to finance for the release of the funds.
So,
Finance signs off on contracts, so.
Yeah.
so,
Finance has to
That's
sign off
right.
on contracts.
so what we're really talking about, though, is just a handful. Because every year, if you look at the number of applicants we have, anywhere from, say, 10 to 18 at any time, maybe we fund little, maybe a dozen or something, maybe 3 or 4
Yeah.
are outside entities.
That's right.
So maybe we need to, within our procedural kind of write-up, designate a person on the committee who's responsible for making sure that a grant agreement gets in the hands of the applicant, because they have to sign it,
That's right.
and then collecting those to get them in a bunch to the Board of Selectmen in as timely a fashion as possible. It would be in every applicant's best interest,
Right.
you know, so there's not a delay in the processing to get them in, right? I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know how else, I mean, there's been a breakdown. There's a breakdown in the process right now of who actually produces the grant agreement and who
Well,
first.
The grant agreement has been produced. It was produced by KP Law, and there is a breakdown in the process. But the CPC has no control over that breakdown.
But KP Law should be,
I'm not going any further than that. I can't go any further than that.
But what I'm saying is that why can't we do something to help that process along?
Right.
Mary?
at this point, if we need to spend administrative funds to pay KP Law separately to do those grant agreements, they should be doing them. They should be putting in the entity's legal name. They should be putting in the
date,
entity's
etc.
address. They should be,
The amount.
they should be reviewing the statement of work. We should be giving them the guts and saying like, this is what we approved, but they should have the articles. They should be doing that statement of work. They should be reviewing that document, making sure that it's signed by the appropriate person, getting a statement of good standing from the entity that the entity exists and is qualified to do business in the state of Massachusetts. So they should be doing all of those things for us before, and frankly, for the Board of Selectmen, before the Board of Selectmen sign it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what needs to start happening. I think in the past, to answer some of the questions that were floating around, I think the finance director was putting them together. A few finance directors passed. I think that's maybe stopped happening at one point. And I don't know where along the way, but I do think that's a council job to review and approve those contracts as to form, because that's what town council does.
Just understand that what I'm looking at as chair of this committee is working with the town administrator. So in order to do that, we have to provide the information that we have for the articles, the number, the monies, the dates, et cetera, to him to submit to KP Law.
Right, so
I
they're-
can't do it directly.
No, but they're gonna
If I
know,
hire, if the board hires their own attorney to represent the board, that's a whole different thing.
there's no, we're not a signing authority for the town.
Okay,
There's no reason, the Board of Selectmen is the signing authority, is the contracting authority for the town. And once we give administration the information for the articles, they have the bulk of the information. When the article goes forward, that's when they should, that's all the information. The article's gonna get voted up or down at town meeting. And at that point, they have all the information plus the article and the approval date. So, you know, I think the attorney should be able to handle it from there. It's what they do.
okay. Moving on. Any
And
others?
can I just say one last thing?
Sure.
I think we set the expectations during the vetting process this year, that these are the policies we're expecting. We're expecting the grant agreement to be signed. You, applicant 27, we're expecting, if your item gets approved, that the expectation is that you sign a grant agreement that'll be presented to you, and we expect that it'd be signed by such and such a date, and get turned around and understand that if it's not signed, the disbursement of funds won't happen.
All right, so are you establishing a draft right now?
Well, I think, kind of, I think what we just, I think if we have an outline at the next meeting, I think we can go forward.
Marcy?
Fill in the blanks.
To Mary's point, I think it's right. I think it's a good idea to have a policy. We should have something in writing to review. And also, I was going to suggest whoever this finance director comes in play, or whoever, we should meet with them. And so we're all on the same page. So we're not wondering where it's going. I mean, to Mary's point, you know, KP Law, they have all that information. They should be doing that, but it sounds like it's being lost in the process, in the holdup. So we really should have somebody from finance, if they'll allow that, to meet with us.
What I would say to you is, the 6 years I've been chair of this board, I've brought the finance director in every year, the beginning of every year, to give an explanation of how the monies are distributed within the buckets, and an explanation of what the buckets are. But this goes a little beyond that. I have to stop there. So, but I don't disagree with you, I agree with you. Whether it's gonna happen or not, I don't know. I can make the request. So, let's put something on the table now, as far as a draft. What does the board want in a grant agreement? Start with some ideas.
I think we've done it over again.
Go ahead.
You're doing, what our expectations are, who has to sign a grant agreement? All applicants except, individual town departments.
Okay, so now we're talking about the trust, because they're on the outside.
Anybody
There's gonna be-
except an individual town department.
There's gonna be pushback from the trust, because they're gonna want to participate in the grant agreement. I'm just letting you know what happened last year. So, how do you, it's our grant,
It's not
It's
it's
the-
not ours to sign.
I
Town
understand that.
council handled that, we handled that just fine last year when the issue came up. It was removing a sentence with rescission.
Mary, they
They-
didn't sign it.
Well, then
They didn't sign it,
they should have.
but they didn't sign it.
I'm saying if we're establishing a policy, we're saying
All
they
right,
should.
we can change that now. You're right. Now you're establishing a written policy. And if they want to sue, they can sue, whatever.
Oh, okay.
So the first thing would be,
I just have a request. Can we just separate from this discussion whatever history there is with the trust? Because that's a singular problem. It's a singular issue. It
Agreed.
works differently from everything else.
Correct.
And it's just complicated. And we could, just go down that rabbit hole, never climb our way out.
agreed.
But it seems to me like we're talking about a short paragraph that would go in where we already have language in the info packet that says, you're gonna be, possibly you will be expected to sign a grant agreement. And what you just said a few minutes ago, Mary, sounded to me kind of like what we would add to that paragraph. Do you agree with that? Do you agree it's that simple? And if it's that simple, maybe you could make a draft and we could fold it
Well,
in.
that's what I said. I think we do an outline. I think we come to the next meeting with an outline. I will do my best. I have an election coming up that week, but I will do my best to do an outline that we can just look at the next meeting. I'm not a fan of drafting anything while we're sitting here. Because I also don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. Because there may be 27 CPC policies out there that will say how they handle their grant agreements. So I just want the opportunity to take a look at those. But I think it's all gonna be handled. I don't think it's as
Complicated.
earth-shattering as we're kind of making it out to be.
So,
Well, if the money hasn't been
Yes, John,
distributed.
I don't think it's
Is
a,
it
I just
shattering?
want to, close, if I may, on this.
yeah.
So, I think you're agreeing that it goes in this statement, which is on page 2 of the info packet, and if you could start with that and see how
Yep.
whatever you're drafting just fits into that, then, my only concern is that this is September, and we're gonna have a due date, which is 3 weeks later, or whatever it is, and we need to just roll this in and make this change and post it on the website in pretty short order after that's done.
So I also would not be concerned if we didn't finalize language before their application comes in, because we can also handle that as we're going through the vetting process.
And you
That
are
this is-
notifying them that
Right, that this
the
is,
grant agreement is,
Okay.
this is what we expect. And long before we vote to recommend,
Yeah.
we can make sure that they understand that and are on board. But, certainly sooner is better, which is why I'm saying, like, we do a quick little outline with the who, the what, the why, the where, the when, get it kind of finalized at the next meeting. We'll come with an outline and we'll finalize it then.
Okay, thank you, Mary, thank you, John. Kelly?
Mary, I can team up with you to help with this project, if that's.
I'm sorry.
I can team up with you to help with this
Perfect,
project,
thank
if
you.
that's okay, great.
Okay. Anything else from anybody else on the board? As far as this subject is concerned. Okay, hearing none, moving on. How projects come to fruition. That's an interesting thought. There's no mechanism that I know of right now that the CPC has to verify projects are complete. Only the applicant coming in saying, we've completed the project.
That's what
So-
status updates are.
But some of the applicants don't do status updates.
Technically, in the information guidelines, it says
They're required,
that they're required within 30 days of the completion of the project, that they
Right.
are supposed to tell us. But I'm just saying, right?
so
Isn't that in there?
I'm gonna bring it back to you. How many people have been in front of this board saying, our project is complete, da-da-da-da-da-da-da?
Everybody that we've rescinded money
Some.
from.
Some,
So,
Some.
if we've rescinded their leftover monies, they've come in and told us they were done and complete. I'm not
And it-
saying it doesn't need to be better, but
okay, in a timely manner. Go
Are
ahead,
you
John.
suggesting we form an
John, I
inspection?
can't hear you, sweetie,
I'm
I'm so
sorry.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I know, this is a constant complaint. I'll try this. How's this?
There we go.
That's all right. I get that other places too, so it's not new. Are you suggesting we need to form an inspection committee?
No,
Site visits?
no,
Okay.
none of us are qualified to.
Well, then where are you going with this, I guess is my question.
Kathy?
Aren't the status updates twice a year, enough?
Should, once the project is complete, can we put a time stamp on the date that the project is complete? So that if there's any leftover monies, we can rescind it? Because in the past, previous boards of the CPC have allowed the money to sit out there forever.
Yeah, but we don't do that
we don't do
anymore.
that anymore, David.
I understand that, but there are still some of the projects that come in for completion 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Very few. And they have come before us and asked us for extensions. We're pretty much on top of it.
Yeah, I think.
So you don't want a timestamp?
No. To what end? There's, to just give yourself a random date for, we're following up and rescinding the money as they're coming in. Eric comes before us on a project for recreation, he tells us he's done. We rescind the monies that are left over. You know, the parking lot at Red River Beach was a weird one. She couldn't get it approved through the state. So,
Amy,
she asked for an extension to try and go
that's
back.
right, yes.
So, I
You're
mean, the ones that are hanging out there really are the things like the trusts that are, that's money that's just gonna go to them and we're not gonna worry about. So I don't think there's a big problem with the status updates. I think if people aren't giving us status updates, then we continue to ask for them, and then if they don't follow up, then we consider the rescission, I guess, but.
Right.
Okay. Kathy?
Yeah, when I file the CP3 report with the coalition, I have to put whether the project is completed or not.
Mhm.
And I also record if we had rescissions, because I have to change the total amount that was given to them.
Mhm.
So it is reflected in that
In
end of
that
the
report.
bookkeeping, yeah.
Okay. All right, any other thoughts from any of the other board members?
My only other thought is that if there are old articles that are hanging out there, which we know there were for quite a long time, that's gonna be a project for a finance director to clean up when they start looking at all of the random accounts and the random articles. I mean, Munis is set up to just put those monies into fund account and, you know, at some point, those accounts will get closed. Like,
We're
I
pretty
have,
good right now.
Yeah.
We're really caught up.
good,
And I think after this fall, we're not gonna have a ton of open accounts.
Good.
We even closed out all the old admin accounts. You know, they
Right.
were
Yes.
folded into
Right,
the,
right, right,
and we
right.
had some of those hanging out there. So I
Yeah.
think there's way less than there used to be.
okay, good.
Any other thoughts from any of the board members? Okay, moving on. Plan for fall update status reporting. So, that's a good one.
What month do you wanna have the reporting?
I'm gonna turn to the secretary and ask her, what's a good month for you for the next set of reportings?
That's for y'all to decide.
I understand that, but
Can I request October?
sure.
We have a September election and we have a November election.
Yeah,
I would
that's-
prefer,
Right.
I would prefer early October.
Is that okay with everybody on the board?
Yes.
Yeah, but we'll have received all of our applications then.
Right.
Usually we don't start setting up anything until after that October meeting. So
Okay,
I
so
think that would be fine to have it in October.
Consensus is October?
Yep.
Is there a particular date, does it matter?
Or
Regular
general
meeting.
meeting, our regular
Regular
meeting.
meeting?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Second Thursday should be
9th?
But the other
The
thing
12th?
is, are y'all happy with, we're asking what we've been asking
Lep-
for?
What, go ahead, sorry.
What we've been asking for in the status reports. We're asking for a progress, we're asking for what's been completed, and we're asking for what they have planned in the near future to complete their project, and we're asking for budget. Maybe we aren't asking what you want, we rarely get a budget.
Yeah.
So we rarely know,
I'm not interested in getting a budget. We already got their budget
We
originally.
approved it- We
when
approved
the
it.
application, right.
so maybe zero budget. Don't make that a request. If they want to offer, they can.
Wait, just a quick
I
question.
think
But is
that's
there
standard
something that
request.
you're not getting in the reports?
No,
That's my question.
I think we usually try to ask is, how much have you spent so far? How much is first? That's what I'm looking for.
That's typically what we're getting,
Yeah,
so,
So no changes in what we are asking?
no.
No,
Okay.
okay. Follow-up. Okay, all right, you've got the floor.
Question.
Yes.
Is this an in-person update or just a paper update?
We usually allow both.
We
if they can.
allow, or do we want both? Do we
All
we
right,
want
well,
them to appear before us? Because some groups will just, it's the opportunity not to
This
show
is
up.
easy. What's the pleasure of the board? In-person update or paper updates? Electronic? I'm sorry. Kelly?
Previous discussions we've had, is that, we may receive a paper update, but then we can ask them to show up in person, if we do have more specific questions. If there are projects that are flagged for this, that we are pretty certain ahead of time that we want them to come in person to answer certain questions, then we should probably ask for that and invite them to that meeting, instead of having to get paper and then wait. That's my thought.
John? I see the wheels spinning, so.
No, I don't have anything to say. I don't have strong feelings either way, actually.
Okay. Robert?
I think, having them come twice a year is kind of onerous. I would definitely like to just see the written report, we review it, and if we have questions, then ask them to appear at the next scheduled meeting.
Kathy?
That's a tough one. I mean, we have, most of our applicants are repeat applicants. And very often, we have applicants who have multiple applications that they're reporting on. So it's not really a hardship for them to report on, you know, as recreation does, like 5 projects and, you know, whatever. But I think because we're asking the question of, you know, if your project is completed and if there's funding that's still, that hasn't been used to be rescinded, we need them to tell us that. And if we just get it on paper, then we have to backtrack and get them to send us a letter. And so you know, I'm in favor of the in-person reporting.
Interrogation.
No. Is that directed at me?
No, heaven no. Mary?
I'm in favor of both. I'd rather see them in person so that we have the opportunity. My only caveat to that is when it comes to town staff or town departments, we should make sure that courtesy is extended to the administration office, because they're really the ones that can tell them to show up or tell them to show up to our meetings. So I just think we need to start doing that. I don't know that we have in particular. So that communication should be there.
Marcy? Thank you.
I would say in person, if I'm looking at, we're talking the second Thursday in October, that's October 10th. I think in person, because we can allow to ask questions, and personally, I think they like to come in person, because they're able to interact, correct?
Okay, I'm not gonna put it to the vote. What's the consensus of the board? I agree, I'd rather have them in person for a spontaneous discussion with them. So, Kathy?
Well, just a thought here. Somebody who has a project that was just funded at this past town meeting may not have much to report on. Okay, so in that case, a paper report is fine. If it's something that's like, say, older than a year or something, then I would like an in-person response so that we can ask them what the status is.
Anything funded prior to the 2024 annual town meeting I think we should get in person.
Yeah.
But maybe those funded in annual 2024, we just ask for the paper? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, that were funded in May, yeah. I mean, because I just don't think they're gonna have much to report on. A lot of them some of them will not have accessed their funds yet. I mean, I don't know if we want to get into that whole, differentiation, but just a thought.
Talk about a rabbit hole.
Well, 2 of them are easy.
So, isn't that the way it works now? I mean, it's informal. There isn't a rule set down, but most of the people come in and report, and some people can't make it or whatever and get a written report. Can't we just leave it the way it is? I'm sorry, am I not speaking?
Loud enough?
Well, John, for example, we didn't get a person here to answer our questions about the Skinnequit Pond remediation, okay? This is just an example, it's nothing to do with the fact that, whatever. Just a fact.
I'm just trying to think of why that particular thing happened that way.
Well, I think because the person from the town wasn't able to make it a couple of times, and so we got a written one, but we didn't get, and we did have some questions. So, I don't know, I mean,
So you're suggesting it should be stronger language than just letting it ride? I mean, it already says, or does it say in person? I don't actually remember whether
It
it's.
says that if you cannot attend, then you have to send a representative that knows the project and can answer questions. And so we've made that,
Okay, well, so does that address your concern? And still, sometimes.
right.
There's a
No, I
conflict.
mean,
and
there's no way for us to enforce, like we talked before, there's no penalties or, whatever. It's just that, it's part of our guidelines, our procedures, and we need the information to inform us moving forward. That's all.
Is that incorporated into the application, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Is it clear?
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
You've reviewed this.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear.
Probably wrote it to begin
It's
with.
pretty clear. The question is even though people check off that they read the informational packet, they probably haven't. So it's unclear to some, but it is there, it's clear.
But I also think part of that is most department heads aren't used to being summoned to a board meeting other than a Board of Selectmen's meeting. So I think we help ourselves by making sure that that communication not only goes to the department head, but also to administration so that
Right.
they're aware that
Of course.
this is our request and this is why. And then hopefully we don't have those
They work
issues.
for him, you're right.
They work for the town administrator.
But I mean, 90% of our applicants have no issues
I don't
with
disagree.
coming before
I don't disagree at all.
CPC.
No, but that courtesy should be extended.
Yes, it should be.
Understood. Okay. Are we set?
So, 2025 fiscal year, the recently approved projects, I am not asking in person, I'm asking for a written.
Yeah, I wouldn't say 2025 because that just confuses them, because
Well,
then they think
we
they've gotten
know
money.
what that is,
from-
but the
No, what we're
ones that
saying
we
is
just
anything that-
approved.
We're
Anything
saying
that was-
anything that was approved at the annual town meeting for, in
2024.
May 2024, they do not have to come forward in person in
On
October.
those approved projects. But I will
Unless they
ask,
have a significant update to provide us.
Right. We would like a written
But-
report.
I'm asking for a written report.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, is that clear for everybody? All right, moving on. Signs.
Signs. I don't really have much of an update. I mean, the banners, that we have 7 of them out there are still up. Yay.
Yay.
It's remarkable.
The signs have a tendency to walk away.
Really?
Yes, the lawn signs. So we're, sort of having to be a little bit more choosy about where we put them, that's all.
Do we think people are taking them? Do we think they're blowing away? What do we think's happening to them?
Personally,
Yes.
we think that there are certain groups where we put the signs that don't like the signs, so they remove them.
Okay, so that's another one of our policies. If you put a sign on your project.
Well, they are
it's big.
taxpayer-funded signs,
Correct.
so,
Correct.
well,
I mean, I was wondering if we maybe didn't get permission to put the signs up through the sign bylaw. Maybe that's why somebody,
No.
it was the town that was
we,
taking
we
them?
got permission.
No, actually,
Okay.
I spoke to the former chair of the Board of Selectmen, and she said to me, it's town property, you go ahead and do it.
Right, but the building department would need to know that as well, so, that's all. It's election season.
I don't think these have been removed by the building department,
Okay, that was my question.
just a hunch.
People
Okay.
are irritated it's in their way.
Knowing that these signs, as I put them in myself at my job, they don't blow away easily. So they probably
That's what I was
physically
figuring,
walked
Kelly,
away.
Just for the record, wanted to make sure that we were all.
I think we did have one blow away last year from one big storm. Other than that, no.
Really disappointing that people would be removing those signs. Because it's informing the public of how their tax dollars are being spent. And frankly, thanking the taxpayers for spending their money. So,
People are territorial with their space, so.
but maybe we inform that for our next votes. Just saying.
Okay, moving on. Anything on the website, John?
Well, the application is up and running, and there was a transition period, I think, for the town website, period.
There was.
And it was, and that applies to the CPC website, partly because I hadn't updated it in a little while anyway, and somebody, I don't know who it was, but probably someone who works for for Civics Plus or some other contractor just, I think, went through the entire town website and ported, I don't know, moved the old stuff into the new stuff, but it wasn't done with a lot of attention to detail, I would say. So I've been through and fixed most of what I thought needed fixing and updated a bunch of stuff. There's still a few things that need to be updated, but I think everything's in place. The only thing is, one item that is not entirely up to date, which doesn't have anything to do with the website change, is there's 3 documents that we need to maintain on there. One is a list of projects approved at the most recent town meeting. The other is a list of the historic list. That needs to be updated. That's been updated for this year. And the third is active projects. And I have not, that was last updated in January. I did an update of how I thought was correct. Needs to be reviewed. I think I sent it to you, Kathy, but I
Yeah.
haven't put that up on the website
Right.
yet.
Good.
I think the problem with the active projects list is that we need to get an updated munis report so that we can see what's still open. That's the problem. So I couldn't tell you with 100% accuracy what was closed out and what wasn't unless I could see the munis report.
All right, well, if there's one there that's dated January, so people know it's not
Yeah.
entirely up to date. But at some point, we should probably update it. Maybe we should wait until we get the project updates
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
October.
I would, yeah.
And then try to get that
Yeah.
list and update that thing.
And that, by then, I'm hoping that the munis reports will continue coming to me. So I'll make that request of the new finance director,
Okay,
and that'll help tremendously.
all right, and I tested the new application. I went through it. Be pretty good if one or two other people would go through and run test things just to make sure it works right. And otherwise, I think we're all set with that for now.
Okay, any questions for John from the board?
It looked good.
Thank you for doing it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
No
Will
problem.
Will Emily have an update of all this information?
Emily, a couple of months ago, Emily sent an email to Sarah Eden, the IT director. She needs new credentials to get onto the new website, and I don't think that's happened yet. I know she's had a few posts from Sarah. One is just sending her a training video, which is something I looked at for understanding how the new website works. It's different, it's more complicated, but not dramatically so. It's just more involved.
It
And I
probably
don't-
has a document center now and an image center, and you probably have to upload it by committee and then hyperlink to it. It's how ours works with the new Civic Plus.
Right, I mean, there was something like that in the old one too, uploading documents, but it works very differently, and there's just a lot more settings and different things you can do with it and all that stuff. But, I mean, it's up and running right now, and, you know, if Emily does the training video and gets online, it'll be fine. One of the other complications is that the online application is like a completely different piece of the software, and you need different credentials, and that took
Oh, God.
a little bit more shaking the tree to get access for me, to be able to edit the online application. Like the rest of the website, somebody, I think it was Sarah, but I'm not sure, maybe Sarah with some other contractor, had taken the old application and put it into the new format, but it still needed a lot of editing and took a while to get credentials to be able to go on there and make those edits. So to get a second person, we're gonna have to just go around in that, through that process again, but
Just so the board knows, there's been a dramatic change. I have software in this computer that's town software. And now I have to, it's logged into me under my cell phone number. Then it sends me a queue with a bunch of numbers on it.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah,
that
we
I
all-
gotta punch in. This is the first time, I wasn't at the last meeting, I missed that. So this is the first time I've accessed it. I was surprised. I mean, they seem to have jumped a level of security,
which is good.
which is
Yeah.
good.
I had to actually get a town email in order to get credentials to edit the website at all.
Well, I would suggest that you encourage Emily to get the credentials, otherwise you're gonna be doing this until 2035. So,
No, I'm not.
We hope you will.
well, you can't leave us high and dry, John. I mean, some of us here, we were glazing over when you said links. I'm like, oh, God.
Come on, Kathy.
I do that on purpose.
Yeah.
I still love the day that Kathy came to us with the literal cut and
Cut and
paste.
paste.
I loved that.
I mean, literally, cut and paste it on the thing.
She did our flyer and she cut out pieces and taped them
This is
together.
how we do it.
I loved it. It was beautiful.
It's the same.
Part of the problem is, this is almost entertainment for me. So
Almost being the key
Almost.
word,
That
right?
is a
I
key
got it,
word,
John. I got it.
God bless you.
Love it.
I had to cut and paste now, for
And that's
real,
entertainment for you, right?
right? For real.
Okay, our next board meeting is.
don't know.
Up. There's been a change.
No.
Oh, follow up on social media. I forgot.
The most
Kelly.
exciting bit for last.
Mackerel, I apologize.
That's okay, I'm not offended. So I just, I figured that I'll share a post for this month and next month that's really pushing the application. So I circulated one with the library and chamber that covers, there's sort of that table in the info packet that shows what projects types qualify for CPC funds or CPA funds. So figured that was worth sharing, and then we'll do another push in September as we're leading up to deadline. And gonna talk to Emily a bit more about some of her thoughts as well. So that's that. Any
Okay.
other thoughts?
Thank you. Do you want to tell the board what your plans are going forward?
Yes, I can do that. I will be come October 1st, I will be a Barnstable resident, so next meeting will be my last meeting with you all. So just wanted to share my gratitude for the opportunity to serve here with all of you, but for our community as well. Thank you.
Sorry
Thank
to
you.
hear that.
Sorry to see you go.
Okay, next. Oh,
Just the
Kathy?
quickest thing about the social media. One of the things that came up at our public information meeting, I don't think you were here,
No.
one of our applicants came before us and talked about how the only projects that we dealt with were projects that, came to us, and that, we didn't look for projects. We didn't look for things in the community. And so maybe there's a way to, when you're promoting the application and stuff, maybe there's a statement that we could, say that asks, the community, if you have any, ideas or thoughts, or something that you want to, bring, potential funding, this is the place to start.
Is the public meeting?
Well, no, I'm just saying it's the application, we're trying to find out if there's people out there that just don't know anything about the process. They might have ideas, but they don't know anything about the process. And so the only thing that we deliberate on is what actually comes to us, because
Right.
we don't go out and beat the bushes for, projects. Part of that is because we're a volunteer group, and part of it is because, we only have X amount of funding, and we only have X amount of time to deliberate, X amount of applications, et cetera, et cetera. But, I'm just wondering if there's like a one-liner that can, create a little interest.
Yeah, I definitely submitted something like that before, but I know that repeat is always helpful.
Yeah.
And I'll ask Emily some of her thoughts
Okay.
on that
All right,
too.
that's it. Sorry.
No, thank you.
That's okay.
It's always great to hear.
Okay, go ahead.
Chairman, I
John.
just have a question. Do you have any idea about the number of hits you're getting on these, or how many people are seeing your social media posts? And what social media is it? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram?
So the library and the chamber will put it on, the library does Facebook, and I believe they do Instagram. I think the chamber does both as well. But I might be a little incorrect. And then the library, also shares that post into, 3 community boards too. So so that goes to some more specific interest groups. And I can't recall those off the top of my head, but there's some like kind of major community groups through Facebook.
Old Timers is probably one of them, right?
Old Timers is one of
Yeah, I
them,
think
yeah.
it's on I Love Harwich. I know
I
I
think
liked it,
that's
so.
another one in
yeah.
there.
And there's the third
you.
one is, I think, Harwich Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's probably the 3, yep. Yep. My impression is it's not a lot of hits, but it doesn't hurt that it's out there, bottom line, yeah. Not a lot of like interactions is I guess what the phrasing is, whether that's a comment or a like
Just a
button
like,
or
right.
whatever, yeah. But doesn't hurt that it's out there. Mhm.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
are we set? All right, so the next, first of all, does anybody want anything on the next agenda, other than what we talked about tonight?
The policy.
Yeah. That's it? Okay. Next agenda, next meeting is Thursday, September 11th, 2024. So,
Okay.
Is that the right date?
I don't know that that's the
I
right
don't,
date.
that's not the right date.
No,
no?
No, Thursday's the 12th.
the 12th, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Okay, take care of the typo.
sorry.
All right, so our next meeting date is Thursday, September 12th, 2024. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion.
All those in favor?
I-
Aye.